in my intuitive sense, I think that social media can be corrosive, but I don't really have a strong empirical basis to.
You don't have a strong empirical basis to deter. Do you need empirical data to quantify harm to children? How the fuck would you even record that level of harm empirically? How? I do want to look at this Taylor Lorenz stuff because I do think there's an interesting duality between her, how she behaves with Pisco versus Destiny. And I'm more so curious on what's going on. Okay, playback speed 1.25. I don't plan to watch the full thing, but we will see. The chorus stuff is interesting. I did apply for chorus. Oh, good, your life, Matt. I mean, it's nothing strenuous. I've just been busy doing a lot of stuff.
Hi. Oh my God, my face is so shiny. This is the first time I've looked at myself all day. How's it going?
No, it's going well. Don't worry about it. Are you in California? Are you in the West Coast right now?
I'm in LA. I live in LA. Where are you?
I'm in New York right now. So it's a little bit cold. Yeah, a little bit cold. But we're so happy to have you today of all days. Why don't you introduce yourself? A lot of my audience knows who you are, but give yourself an introduction and what we're going to be talking about today.
I'm Taylor Lorenz. I cover technology. I've been a tech reporter for like 15 years, and I'm also a content creator. And I write about technology, the internet, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and my audience, I think a lot of them know you from various different interactions with either the chorus creators or Ethan Klein and Hassan Piker, these types of individuals. But you report a lot on technology and issues that implicate the First Amendment too. And that I think is a shared interest of ours. Go ahead.
I cover tech policy. Yeah, and I have covered tech policy for a little over 10 years. I for New York Times, Atlantic, Washington Post, et cetera. I still freelance a lot. But yes, I also cover the influencer economy. So I feel like if you're under the age of maybe 40 and you're involved in internet drama, yeah, that's probably where you see my face.
No worries. And though we might have some disagreements on some of those issues, I think people might cite, like, for example, the chorus drama. I think we're very aligned on.
Wait, what's the disagreement?
I think that we probably would disagree on the characterization of at least some of the contractual terms that came out in the Wired article. Yeah, and that has to do with,
they should release they haven't been able to get a single correction on the story.
Well, listen, I'm in favor of full transparency, and we'll get to transparency and privacy because I think those.
Also,
go for it.
Oh.
Will this be another example of Pisco dealing with someone on the left, and then it seems like he's being very nice to him? Will it be another example of that? I don't know. We'll see.
So not to interrupt, the chorus thing is really crazy. Their reaction to me was so insane and made it such a story. Like, I think that there's a case to be made if you're a political influencer to take dark money. I wouldn't do it, but I understand like why they did. I just think you should be transparent about it, especially if you're going to call out Benny Johnson and Tim Pool for taking money under the table. I just think we need more transparency in our political system. It's not like a personal attack on it. I mean, I have friends that are in that program. I don't. It's not no hate on them. It's just like my job to report on this stuff. And I report on when the right does it, I report on it. And when the left does it, I report on it.
Well, if that's the extent of the normative position, in other words, where the dark money issue, it's not sort of the same kind of normative baggage that you would ascribe, I don't know, fraud or something like that. That's not what you're alleging. And if the sort of larger prescription is disclosure, I think we're aligned on that. I do think that it's...
Yeah, that's what the story said.
All right. Well, she completely manipulated Pisco to her side. Now, unfortunately, I did not care enough to look into this in-depthly. From my understanding, there's a lot of mischaracterizations in terms of chorus. I don't follow Taylor Lorenz in that much, but I don't trust this characterization, and I find it interesting Pisco is so willing to trust it. But
nowhere are we accusing them of fraud. They definitely didn't. I mean, I think that the people that orchestrated the program, the 1630 Fund lawyer, talking about skirting FTC regulations on the call is not a good look, but he didn't do anything illegal. I mean, this is the problem in our political system, is that we don't have transparency around funding. I want that across the board. I want that for, like, leftists don't get funding, but it's mostly the right that's doing this, right? It's mostly, this is like 90% of this stuff happens on the right. So we should all want transparency.
And the one thing I have to take exception with before we get to the main meat of our topic, and I think though issues of transparency and disclosure are absolutely relevant and are percolating in a lot of the issues we're going to talk about, is the comparison to Tenet. Lauren or Taylor, it's so different, right? I mean, like the Tenet media, we're talking about violations of Foreign Registration Act, evidence that.
I wouldn't compare the 1630 fund to Russia at all. Like, no, but I think in terms of, I'm just saying taking money from an entity where you don't know where the money's coming from. And by the way, that's what, Benny Johnson and Tim Pool argued, right? Is that we didn't know where the money's coming from. We thought, and that's what these, look, that's how a dark money fund is structured, that you don't know where you're taking the money from. And what I would argue for these creators, I'm a journalist, so I do have to know where my money comes from. If you're a political influencer, 1630 Fund has done a lot of good work on reproductive justice. They fund a lot of abortion campaigns. Like, I'm not saying there's some evil, I don't support sort of the structure of dark money, but I'm not saying they've never done anything sort of good for the Democrats. But I think we need to hold ourselves to higher standards, and we need to argue for transparency in the system, because if you buy into the system without transparency, the Democrats are not winning that system, So that's all really I wanted to sort of get across.
On the disclosure front, I think we're totally aligned, and I do think that it's right. I had a debate appearance on Word War Debate. It's this new thing that I'm sure there's a bunch of like weird funding schemes. I don't know. They're like conservatives who want to promote debate as like UFC stuff.
I've seen this.
Did you see
this, I think.
All right, I probably will do a video later, really checking her article and cross-referencing it to her current characterization. I'm going to watch the Destiny debate afterwards. So we'll see if that is the case. And maybe I'll just use both of those to determine whether this is an honest interpretation. Because in this situation, she's like, oh, yeah, I was just giving out information. I was just, telling the people that they have dark money. It's no big deal. They're not as bad as the right. I don't know. From my from vibes, it did seem like a lot of people were perceiving this as a much more nefarious operation that sweeps for Israel. But I'll let it continue.
Anna Kasparian against Pearl Davis. It was like a complete blowout. It was so I was like the opener. We were talking about like I forget birthright citizenship, but yeah, I disclosed the honorarium they gave me because it probably is. I don't know what money is funding there, and I want my audience to know that I was being paid. That it was like a short notice that I went and did it, but no, I do agree with the disclosure aspect. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying, like, that was the crux of the article. And that's all the article. I think it got taken because of the insane way that they responded. It went off the rails. Like, I still, to this day, it's very confusing to me. They knew about this story for a month. They knew everything in the story. There's stuff that we didn't end up including that was not great.
All right, I'm going to skip this. I'm going to pin this. Pisco's not pushing back. I can probably guess why. And then I'll leave that... I'll let the Destiny part really address whether this characterization is fair. I'm going to move on to another interesting part of their conversation.
So why don't we get started then on the actual subject of what we're here to discuss? Because frankly, I don't see like any people or major figures talking a lot about this. And the reason I reached out to you is because you're one of the consistent people talking about this. And so if you don't mind, introduce what we're here to talk about and just from a general level so that the people in the audience can understand.
Yeah. So what I want to talk about, which I go everywhere. I mean, Pisco, you're talking about no one talk. I went on InfoWars twice to try to get the Patriots to even care. Yep. Like, I will talk to anybody about this. I think as somebody that's covered tech policy and covered this extreme far right reactionary effort to mass surveillance censor the internet by dismantling Section 230 protections, by sort of passing censorship and surveillance laws under the guise of child safety, we're really closer than ever to what the tech policy agenda that organizations like the Heritage Foundation, Nicosi, formerly known as Morality and Media, laid out over a decade ago. And it's very scary. And you're seeing actually both the Democrats and Republicans go along with this. And I think that generally there are no leftists online that talk about tech policy. Like, if you look at the big leftist or even liberal influencers, they never talk about tech policy. And tech policy is so central to the right's power grab and has been so central to their rise. And the left has like completely dropped the ball, and you cannot get them to engage. I don't know why they don't engage on these issues the way the right does. But like the right, like the MAGA people, even if they disagree with you, they know they're very like, they know what Section 230 is. They will sort of, spout their talking points. And people on the left, I think, just kind of ignore it. I don't know why, but it drives me insane. So now we're, witnessing what happened today.
Man, that might be a future research on the dime topic, to talk about how social media probably should be, it should be probably skewered and be held a little bit more liable and accountable for all the terrible misinformation that is destroying people's psyche. I do think that is a worthwhile conversation. That's why I'm interested in what they're about to talk about. There's probably very interesting things that I might agree with. And I do think the right has nefarious reasons why they would want to limit free speech. I do think they don't care about free speech. However, there is a larger conversation in terms of social media and kids, because she mentioned the Child Safety Act, that I wonder if I'll agree with them with.
in the House, and
Yeah. So what
I
happened
saw
today in the House
AOC
is
speaking against
oh,
it. She was the only one.
against it. No, that's great, and I really I like AOC, and I like Senator Wyden, I think, as well, in terms of the Senate.
Wyden's amazing.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
And so yeah, so today there was a markup for COSA. Tell us what COSA is, and tell us sort of the connection between COSA and other laws that are happening both in the country, in other states, but also internationally.
Yeah. So broadly, there's an effort to remove anonymity from the internet and transform the internet. Sorry, I'm in downtown LA. If you hear
Yeah,
sirens,
no worries. It's really low, the volume.
The goal is to transform the internet from a free and open place where we can all exchange ideas to a fully censored and surveilled internet, where effectively the entire internet is like Netflix, where there is no user generated content, period. Every single thing that appears online is hosted by an entity that takes legal responsibility and has pre-censored and pre-screened that content. That is the goal. It's a very authoritarian goal. Or, the internet does function like this in extreme authoritarian countries. But that's how, these groups have really mostly religious fundamentalist groups have wanted it since the 90s, because they think the internet is a more
Based off Taylor's characterization, I would say that's bad. Like, clearly, it's framed in a way that's very bad. I would have to look at it. We'll probably look at it when I make a video about it, to see exactly what it refers to. Actually, I guess I couldn't look it up now. I'm not allowed to keep talking.
And the groups you're talking about there are like Heritage Foundation, people who are associated with Project 2035.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. These far right, the Family Research Council, all these far right Christian fundamentalist organizations. Morality and media played a really big role in this.
Sure, and consistently opposed by groups like the ACLU, I think FIRE as well, against COSA. Basically organizations that argue for civil liberties. And how I can see it based on your reporting and what I'm looking at is the restrictions on the internet come prepackaged with certain sensible or understandable policy goals, and they take the form.
Before they continue, I think this actually is the appropriate time to just look at it so we can understand what they're talking about it. So, shout out Wikipedia. The COSPA, Kids Online Safety and Privacy Act, known in the House. Does it say who introduced it? Representative Gus Belrakis, a Republican from Florida. In some Senate versions, Democrat from Connecticut, and Republican from Tennessee, and just same person. Commonly in the general public as COSA, is proposed legislation in the United States first introduced in the Senate in 2022. The bill aims to establish guidelines to protect minors from harmful material on social media platforms through a duty of care system and requiring covered platforms to disable addicting design features to minors. Off the surface, I'm not. Okay, so this is Taylor Lorenz's article. We'll put that out there. The bill originates from the 2021 Facebook leak, which led to a congressional investigation of big tech's lack of protection for minors. And I do think there is something wrong with social media in relation to minors. Senators Richard Blumenthal and Marsha Blackburn co-sponsored the bill and introduced it to the Senate in 2022. It was revived for the 2023-2024 congressional term, and while passed by the Senate in July 2024, it failed to advance the House. Though COSA has bipartisan support by politicians, it has been criticized by both liberals and conservatives for potentially enabling censorship, including material important to marginalized groups, as well as material related to racism, abortion, and transgender issues. Relationship with COPA, Children Online Privacy Protection Act. So is COPA what they're talking about? See, this I need subtitles. Are they referring to COPA or COSA? Oh, sorry.
Argue for civil liberties. And how I can see it based on your reporting and what I'm looking at is the restrictions on the internet come prepackaged with certain sensible or understandable policy goals. And they take the form of, for example, regulations that purport to target speech on the basis of foreign espionage, foreign intrusion, national security, which is, a very common refrain. And the other is to protect children and packaged as age verification.
That's been the main thing. Yeah. The terrorism stuff isn't really getting traction. I think because people sort of saw what happened with the Patriot Act and stuff.
Or the TikTok ban. I mean, that one went through, of course, and that was premised.
It went through because there was no opposition. Yeah, there was no opposition.
And approved by the Supreme Court in 9-0 in a decision which cited the the fact of the foreign threat,
Terrorism.
and assessed by both administrations. But yes, right now the push has been more for, because unfortunately even though ByteDance is not located in China, there is a foreign nexus here, but that doesn't let always the government regulators target purely domestic speech or purely domestic actors.
They had nothing to do with, ultimately, it clearly wasn't any sort of threat, because they can get just as much data today as they could. It didn't come with any sort of data privacy like regulation. There's no effort to curb China's ability to,
Oh yeah, there was a very clear intention for Mega to. They didn't really care about this as an issue, and then they rerouted it so they can have some sort of like tech billionaire control with what was it, Ellison now is the elite, the person who has does he invest the most into the current divestment of TikTok? I think he does. I think he's the primary investor. So yeah, it was all a dog whistle.
access massive amounts of American data. It was so interesting, though, because that argument, that national security argument, was only made in the Supreme Court. It was not really what they were. If you watch the hearings about TikTok, it was all, it's digital fentanyl, it's giving your kids brain rot, there's these fake TikTok challenges. It was all around this moral panic around children, it has been so effective. It's been so effective really for the past decade. But you're seeing it now. So you mentioned COSA. That is the acronym for the Kids Online Safety Act. Right now, today, the House Energy and Commerce Committee moved forward. Let me close it. Sorry, there's like a concert outside. Hold on.
No one can hear it, so you're good, but it might be distracting you.
Okay, so she is talking about COSA, the KOSA. All right, I'll allow her to continue.
There's always some drama going on. So today, the House Energy and Commerce Committee moved forward a package of 12 bills, including COSA and a bunch of other similar bills to COSA. Essentially, all of them would strip anonymity from the internet, require age verification, aka identity verification, to use the web. Under the name the Kids Act. It's like Kids Internet Digital Safety Act or something like that. And so that's been packaged together, and that moved forward today. And then in the House, in the Senate, you have COPPA 2.0.
Yep. Explain COPPA, the COPPA 1.0, and now explain what they're doing now.
COPPA 1.0 is this law from like back in the 90s that was aimed at sort of protecting children online. This is when we had the Communications Decency Act. This was like, there was this big moral panic in the 90s about the internet's corrupting effect on kids. Kind of subsided for 20 years. Now it's back. But COPPA was this Child Online Protection Act that mostly was focused around like protecting kids' data, whatever. It's been sort of a messy, problematic law because it was written so long ago, and it's not great. So I'm not opposed to like efforts to amend it. It's just that they're amending it in insane ways, and they're trying to pass COPPA 2.0, which like actually erodes a lot of privacy protections. And also the FCC said, it was the FCC that said they're not going to enforce COPPA anymore with age verification. Sorry, the FTC. I can't remember. One of the government basically is like, we're not even enforcing COPPA anymore.
I think it's the FTC. I think you're right about
FTC.
that.
Yeah, I'm always like, Brendan Carr just like constantly like tries to insert his hands and everything. So I'm like, are they involved as well? But yeah, it's so basically,
Okay, before they continue, let's look at COSA. The Kids Online Safety Act, if signed into law, would require internet service platforms to take measures to reduce online dangers for these users via a duty of care provision, requiring internet service platforms to comply by reducing and preventing harmful practices towards minors, including bullying and violence, content promoting suicide, eating disorders. Eating disorders is an interesting one, or substance abuse. That's an interesting one as well. Sexual exploitation, very clear. Advertising for illegal products such as drug, tobacco, alcohol. If signed into law, internet service platforms would be required to include features that would protect minors and their data, ensure the ability to opt out of algorithmic recommendations, which I'm okay with, let minors delete their account and any associated data. I'm okay with that. Restrict communications from non-minors. I'm okay with that. And disable addictive products features such as autoplay for videos or platform rewards. I'm okay with that as well. The bill would also require internet service platforms to default to the highest possible privacy setting for accounts that belong to minors. I'm okay with that as well. Internet service platforms will be required to introduce tools for parents to better protect their children. I'm okay with that. And make it easier for both parents and minors to report harmful content and to undergo independent third-party audits and issue public transparency reports detailing possible harms to minors and the efforts to address said harms. I'm, again, okay with everything that's said here. As amended in 2024 for February, most of the provisions in the bill will be reinforced by individuals, state attorney generals. Okay, I'm okay with that. It puts more power in the states, with broader enforcement falling to the FTC. Okay. Having an oversight over what content is deemed harmful to children and enforcing the duty to care provision. In prior versions of the Senate version of the bill, state attorney generals would have enforced duty of care provisions, but due to concerns from LGBTQ activist groups, it was changed to be enforced by the FTC. Oh, okay. I can see why they would want it to be enforced by the FTC, Because there will be state attorney generals that think that like a gay flag is what, sexual exploitation content, most likely. So making it more federal, I think it makes sense. I think having that second amendment power or appeal power makes sense to me. It's the parents, not the children. Parents give their children access to the internet. Bad parents, if you agree that you agree with censorship, censorship already exists. And this idea that censorship doesn't exist is ridiculous. Censorship exists on the internet. So yes, I want to censor bad content for kids. Absolutely, I'm not going to lie about that. Now the question is how you do it. Are there bad parents out there? Absolutely. So if there's a way to mitigate the harm from bad parents, then the government should step in. That's why we have child protection services, for example, to ensure that there is an outlet, a government entity, to ensure that kids that are harmed by their parents get protection. This is just another aspect of that. The question is, do we trust the government to do this appropriately? And that's why it needs proper checks to ensure that certain state attorney generals don't target specific ideologies in favor of like political enforcement. So that's why I completely understand why LGBTQ activist groups would be worried. Completely understand. So they need a level of protection there. Okay, let me see what they're about to say here.
All of this stuff is also happening as there are escalating attacks on Section 230, which is Section 230 of the Communications Decency
I agree, Austin.
Act for user-generated content online.
Yeah, no, it acts as a liability shield for certain interactive computer service providers, which is defined very broadly to include things like even ISPs. But it was in response to a court case which extended liability, and which like there was a big reaction from innovators. Silicon Valley.
It was two court cases, this sort of Prodigy and CompuServe, which were these old internet companies from the 90s, effectively before, this was like when the internet was just coming about. And so they didn't really know how to regulate it. And they were sort of debating, like the far right Christian fundamentalists, they wanted a system where every single thing online was pre-screened and actually given a rating, like a movie style rating system. So every single website would be pre-screened by like government censors that would then give it like rated PG-13, rated R. Like it was just this absurd.
Hold on.
Innovators, Silicon Valley.
It was two court cases, this sort of Prodigy and CompuServe, which were these old internet companies from the 90s, effectively before, this was like when the internet was just coming about. And so they didn't really know how to regulate it. And they were sort of debating, like the far right Christian fundamentalists, they wanted a system where every single thing online was pre-screened and actually given a rating, like a movie style rating system. So every single website would be pre-screened by like government censors that would then give it like rated PG-13, rated R. Like it was just this absurd version of the internet.
All right, my question is like, technically, what is wrong with that? You know what I had access to when I was a kid? And I can say this now. I had access to Omegle when I was a kid. There was nothing preventing me go on it. Went on it. I think you guys can guess what I saw on Omegle. Very inappropriate for a kid. Nothing stopping me. I also had access to videos like 2 Girls, 1 Cup. I think people know what 2 Girls, 1 Cup is. And videos like 3 Guys, 1 Hammer. Now, if you don't know what 3 Guys, 1 Hammer is, it is a video where 3 guys with a hammer did disgustingly terrible, inhumane things to a homeless person. I watched the video as a kid. There's nothing preventing it. It was super easy to find. So, like, I hear you. When you say this to an average person, it sounds absurd. When you think about it more, why shouldn't there be a layer to ensure that kids can't access harmful websites? That was a big problem. Kids saw some insane stuff back in the day. Now, the question is, can we ensure that the government doesn't censor certain things? I don't trust this current government at all. They will 100% censor things in favor of like their far right agenda. But let's say we have a normal government, then I do think there is something to be said about a level of censorship. I do think that is worthwhile. Yeah, I'm with you. Also, I don't want to be that guy, but at the same time, we have to ask, like, what's the alternative? Is the alternative for kids to get access these websites? Like, I don't know. I think the question is, can we properly implement this to the point where it's not restricting free speech? And I have concerns about that as well. But I don't think it's as absurd as she made it seem.
And instead, thank God, we created a different version of the internet, which allows for free speech and user-generated content. And so Section 230, effectively, because there is no public.
If there was if the like thing that she was referring to, the lawsuit of the prior act, if that prevented user-generated content, then I agree that that was a bad act. But a rating system of harmful websites, I do think there's probably something to that.
Common spaces online. It's not like the physical world where we have the only spaces online are corporate spaces.
Right.
So you have to, you have to allow those corporate spaces to do good faith moderation, and allow them to moderate them. That's the BDSM forum is not moderated the same as a children's game or whatever. That's what Section 230 allows. Section 230, as I explain it, it is a core. It is what allows you to speak freely online.
And of course, there's carve-outs for any sort of criminal or unprotected speech.
Yeah.
It doesn't include a carve-out for copyright, which is dealt with elsewhere in the Digital Millennium Copyright Act and the regular.
It doesn't mean you can say everything.
Right,
it just allows the concept of user-generated content to exist. So it makes it so that you can leave a negative review about a restaurant on Yelp, and Yelp won't take that down.
Yeah, anything preventing user-generated content for people over, like, that's not a child, I think that's ridiculous. I think that's ridiculous. Absolutely. You literally just got to press on. Yeah, to get on porn sites is super easy. And some porn sites don't even have the I am 18 mark. It's very easy when I was a child, I'll be honest. It was very easy.
Because they're legally liable for it.
Right. Because there is this notion in like sort of tort law that certain people who publish a message, even if they're not like the original ones who said the message or had that idea, might find some liability for certain kinds of torts. And so the idea is to use some of these bottlenecks, which really are the ISPs, are the platforms, these kinds of things, to prevent in the interest of the government or in the
tort law is contract law,
interest of litigants, certain kinds of misconduct. So taking a big step back, we have a regime of legislation that's being proposed, some of it affecting pre-existing legislation like Section 230, other which is designed, or at least purportedly designed, to protect children. COSA specifically with the age verification system, which is now.
I might as well look up Section 230, so we're all on the same page. Section 230. All right. 47 U.S. Code 230. Protection for private blocking and screening of offensive material. The rapidly developing array of internet and other interactive computing services available to individual Americans represent an extraordinary advance in the availability of educational and informational resources to our citizens. These services offer users a great degree of control over the information that they receive, as well as the potential for even greater control in the future as technology develops. The internet and other interactive computer services offer a forum for a true diversity of political discourse, unique opportunities of cultural development, and myriad avenues for intellectual activity. The internet and other interactive computer services have flourished, blah, blah, blah. It is a policy of the United States to promote the continued development of the internet and other interactive computer services to preserve the vibrant and competitive free market that presently exists for the internet and other interactive computer services, to encourage development technology and maximize user control over what information is received, to remove incentives for the development and utilization of blocking and filtering technologies that empower parents to restrict their children's access to objectionable, appropriate online material, to remove disincentives for development, blocking and filtering technology. So I'm guessing this is the big one right here, right? To remove the disincentives. To ensure vigorous enforcement of federal criminal laws to deter and punish trafficking by obscenity, stalking, harassment by means of computer. Good Samaritan blocking. No user shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. No provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher. A provider or user or speaker of any information provided by another. Okay, fair enough. No civil liability. No provider or user of an internet shall be held liable on account of. So civil liability is another big one. Any action voluntarily taken in good faith to restrict access to or availability of material the provider or user considers to be obscene, lewd, lascivious, filthy, excessively violent, harassing, or otherwise objectionable, whether or not such material is constitutionally protected. No provider or user shall be held liable on account of any to restrict any action voluntarily taken in good faith to restrict access to or availability of material. Interesting. Any action taken or made to blah blah that means to restrict access to material. Just got paragraph 1. Interesting. Okay. This is something that I probably will do a real deep dive to understand the nuances here, but I generally get what it's saying.
Well, all of them have age verification. They all have age verification. They all. Coast is just the most famous one, but the App Store Accountability Act, which they're doing now, that's sort of like their new answer is like, oh, we'll just have like, or if you look at Colorado or California, they're trying to enact, identity verification at the operating system level. They said every operating system, it's like the operating system on your refrigerator has to like verify your biometric data. It's all ridiculous.
And some are better or worse than others.
Why is it all ridiculous?
There's like I note that the California one, even though I do not agree with it, and I don't agree that Newsom should have signed it, it doesn't require any sort of government ID. It's just like
that one. You're right. You could just be like, I'm 18 or whatever. It's just
so
the
what's it doing? Right.
Well, what about the Hawaii one? But I think it's the Hawaii one that says it.
Okay, so what's your issue with it? These are just fucking yes-anding. This is so irritating. It's like, why do you dislike it? Can you give me substance other than it being against free speech? You're a lawyer and you're a journalist. You can give me more than these kind of generalized feelings about something. Can you give me a little bit more details on the reason why it's problematic?
I mean, it's so obviously written like insanely, and it says I believe someone tweeted the other day, some lawyer, that it says it's taking effect in 2077, so that they have time to deal with the like legal issues around it. It's like, so these lawmakers just want to pass something so they can get the local.
That's not it. Like, why is it absurd? Why is it problematic? Just because they want to release in 2020, like that's not an answer to anything. Okay.
News headline that they passed it, but like this legislation is a mess. The state legislation, and also you have these activist states, Utah, Texas, etc., that are taking these really extreme approaches. And what they've done, the right especially, but the left has done this with like things like vehicle emission standards in California. Like states always sort of try to like set federal policy by like passing these extreme laws. And so I understand the need for federal policy in this area. It's just that instead of passing federal privacy regulations and giving us actual like control over data privacy, things that would actually limit the power of big tech and curb the power of these predatory platforms, we're getting the opposite. We're getting a mass surveillance and censorship.
How? So what's your alternative? I hate. One of the things that I hate the most, especially in politics, but in other areas of commentary as well, is people just complain about things. They say everything that is wrong with the thing. And oftentimes they don't really even engage with the idea in a critical manner or provide substance on the problems with the idea itself. They just say it sucks, it's bad, like LDATs. And then they don't provide an alternative. You said that you would be okay with a federal version that limits big tech, that is not adhering to mass surveillance. And don't get me wrong, there are examples where you can say that. I'm with you. I do not trust this administration. They are very clearly trying to do something in relation to mass surveillance. That's why Anthropic decided to leave the government in the first place, because they wanted to use their AI for mass surveillance. Like, we know this is something they want to do, which is why they grabbed voter roll data from your Social Security Administration and gave it to random political advocacy groups. Like, we know this. These are objectively true, Taylor. I'm with you. However, you haven't proven yet, and maybe you will, like, what about these social media acts? So if the only thing you're telling me is because they take a picture of you and that's mass surveillance, then I'm not sold. That's not moving me. People take pictures all the time. That's not mass surveillance. Just take a random picture. Okay, and then they post it online. Everybody can see it. Where's the mass surveillance part? That's what I'm curious. And if you could prove it, then I'm like, okay, that's not good. I'm very reasonable in that way. But you're not doing anything. You're not giving me substance. You said, Austin, well, I'm going to nitpick the system. I won't give an evidence or an alternative. Yeah, it's extremely annoying. Everything that I do, I go into it in depth. And it's just like, these people are professionals in this manner, and they just are not doing it right now.
System.
And for the audience, so you guys understand what Taylor's saying with respect to state setting federal policy, because oftentimes social media will, for the least common denominator, or sort of like the most restrictive measures in a given state, they'll try to unify their regime, whatever that is, in terms of observing content or any kind of internal compliance or TOS, whatever. That effectively, if a state legislation, a significantly important state, has a particular system in place, because of economies of scale, because of trying to maintain a uniform policy, they might hew to the most restrictive standard. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Exactly.
Wait, say that again? Hold on.
Instead of passing federal privacy regulations and giving us actual like control over data privacy, things that would actually say we're getting a mass surveillance,
because oftentimes social,
system.
And for the audience, so you guys understand what Taylor's saying with respect to state setting federal policy, because oftentimes social media will, for the least common denominator, or sort of like the most restrictive measures in a given state, they'll try to unify their regime, whatever that is, in terms of observing content or any kind of internal compliance or TOS or whatever. That effectively, if a state legislation,
they're trying to abide by TOS.
A significantly important state has a particular system in place, because of economies of scale, because of trying to maintain a uniform policy, they might hew to the most restrictive standard. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Can you give me an example of that, please? Maybe Taylor's about to do it right now, but I'm curious an example of that. Like, I understand the idea, like it's a very important state that has economy to scale, that would be i.e. California, and then they implement a social media policy and then they bring it to scale. So that's probably going to have to be abided by other states too, to kind of have some level of uniformity, as he mentioned. Well, like what is an example of it's like it being the most restrictive? Like, okay, California, we don't want to like get into legal trouble, so we're going to make it like very, very fine line, and then we're going to scale it. Like, what is an example of that happening?
Exactly, 100% right.
Yeah, and that's true internationally as well, as you noted in your articles, that that could, although not the same as the sort of the state federal distinction, having the United States set a policy or the EU set a policy sometimes has effect even on how that policy is felt in the United States, given the
right, like, but that's different. We're referring to social media, so I understand that, because there are things that the EU has done regarding social media. I can't. Oh man, I know an example, but I don't remember the exact details on the top of my head. But like, I understand what he's saying. I just don't know what example he can give that proves his wariness in regards to social media. That's my only issue here.
global nature and reach of these social media companies.
Exactly.
Let's get to why these laws are harmful. So I'm gonna read the duty of care imposed by COSA. I think this is the May version. I know that there are amendments, and you tell me your problems with it. Quote: a covered platform, which is defined above, shall exercise reasonable care in the creation and implementation of any, quote, design feature to prevent and mitigate the following harms to minors, where a reasonable and prudent person would agree that such harms were reasonably foreseeable by the covered platform and would agree that these design features is a contributing factor to such harms: eating disorders, substance use disorders, suicidal behavior, depressive disorders, anxiety disorders, patterns of use that indicate compulsive usage, physical violence, and on and on and on and on. What's wrong with that? We're just trying to prevent
what's
kids
wrong
from
with
getting
that?
hurt.
Oh, yeah. The Trump administration cares so much about children. Yeah.
What? I mean, I agree. The Trump administration doesn't give two fucks about children. Taylor, we dap up. I agree with that. The problem with this conversation is there's no way in hell I trust the Trump administration to do these things. I just want to ensure that we're making a differentiation between the clearly fascist government that's in power now versus the idea of the premise of what the act can do for society as a whole. Sometimes you got to parse these things out.
I mean, what's wrong with that is that the lead co-sponsor of COSA, Marsha Blackburn, said this would be used to censor LGBTQ content. She said that we have to pass COSA to protect.
Okay. Heard you. So due to concerns from it was changed to be enforced by the FTC. Now, I don't trust the FTC either because Brendan Carr is a cuck, but heard you, hear you. If this conversation is really like the Trump administration's evil, then yeah, but it doesn't really get to the core of the conversation, and that this might be a little frustrating. But let's continue.
Children from the transgender in society. You have people like Jonathan Haidt, a main proponent of these bills, talking about how, the internet is making these like liberal women more depressed and stuff, and kids might learn about liberal values and that could cause them depression. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I'm all for pressuring these companies to moderate their platforms better and to, serve less harmful content to people. I think the way to do that is to curb their power economically and to increase competition among platforms. We are not doing, there's so many actually options that we could do. This is just.
How is that actionable to protecting children's safety? How is competition protecting children's safety? Because at the end of the day, one of the things that this is intuition speaking, but I feel like I'm right. I'm willing to be proven wrong. But a lot of these companies, tech companies that profit a lot from social media and media in general, where a large pool of their audience is probably at? It's probably kids. How many kids watch streamers on Twitch? How much of them watch? Yes, there's a kid version of YouTube. Most kids over the age of 6 is not using the kid version of YouTube. So these companies are making AdSense. They're getting like a cut of donations and just getting viewership in general. A lot of it is from kids. So the competitive market is impossible to truly achieve if one of the big pies of revenue is children. So I don't understand this, like, we can affect them economically. How? Tell me how. We can enforce competition. Competition is still not going to be competitive because if the competition excludes children and these tech companies keep children, who do you think is going to make more of the money? So yeah, I just don't. She's not giving me the meat. She's not giving me the turkey for a Thanksgiving dinner of an actual substantive alternative.
Giving the government, basically allowing the government to deputize big tech to censor any content that they don't like. And you know what's so hilarious, Pisco? They're saying it out loud. Like, there's not even like, oh, Taylor, do you think it could be used this way? They're like, we have to pass it so that we can use it this way. My favorite tweet ever about this was actually about it. The Heritage Foundation published it. And this girl, Florence Ashley, I'm just going to read it to you.
Yeah.
This was like a year.
I want us to be very clear. I don't want this act to pass with MAGA in charge. I'm with Taylor. I do not want this act to pass with MAGA in charge. Because I agree. I already knew. I didn't need these tweets. I know they do a lot of things off of like culture war and identity stuff. Like 100%. With that said, I was expecting a bigger conversation in the premises. And maybe there's something to be said to not give an inch because it allows a certain level of normalcy behind the position. There's something to be said there. But I am willing to engage with nuance, but I try my best to make it very clear that in every instance, this fascist government is not the ones to do it. So, I don't know.
Ago goes, the Heritage Foundation openly states that they'll use bills purporting to protect kids to instead attack trans content, saying that it's posing a risk of social contagion, basically causing emotional harm among children. This is super concerning, especially given that the bills have bipartisan support. She tweets a screenshot of them saying this about the Kids Online Safety Act. The Heritage Foundation quote tweeted it. And
like, I get it. My issue here is, especially when she brings in Democrats, is she's tying a very clear correlation to the overall intent with the people on the right usage of the act. And maybe, I don't know these Democrats like that to say that they also don't agree with the intent to get rid of LGBTQ content. But I think there is also a very logical, rational position you can have on the Democratic side that a version of this act implemented with a like liberal government would be worthwhile in protecting kids and gutting big tech. I just do. I think the argument is very clear there. I don't know.
Said, yes, we do. She's like,
might
yeah,
end
they're
this
going to use it.
video
And they're like,
early.
yes. They quote and said, yes, we do, period. Keeping trans content away from children is protecting kids.
Yeah,
So
that is concerning, as well as the fact that a lot of not just these
Oh, we got a
conservative
little
groups,
pushback.
unlike with the Section 230, where maybe some tech was behind putting in that liability shield, I'm sure a lot of them were. A lot of tech is behind these measures, as you know in your articles, including Elon Musk, who has previously referred to
yes.
Transgenderism as a disease of the mind or something as well. I think Meta is open to this as well.
Meta is openly advocate. Meta has all these fake groups like the Digital Childhood Alliance, which just is this like, there's all these slop groups that go online all day and post like, we need to crack down on big tech. We're moms and our little Johnny's addicted to social media. We need to crack down on big tech. How are we going to crack down on big tech? Oh, we just need mass AI surveillance. Like,
yeah, no, it's an insane, I think, overreach by the government to be proposed, and not just because it attacks communities or groups or affinity groups that are have low amounts of power or that are often repressed, though that is a concern, obviously. But the fact that it's vague and enforced either by big.
Okay, I'm gonna skip ahead. If anything, I'm just skipping ahead.
Features because they know that that has a better chance of passing legal scrutiny than content. But obviously the problem that they have is with the content, because you know what are some of the most harmful social media? What about Gab? What about Truth Social? You want to talk about harmful social media? Like, we have a lot of extreme right-wing apps, actually an entire ecosystem of them, where there's tons of misinformation, dangerous hate speech, a lot of bad stuff. They're not regulating any of that. They want to regulate like the mainstream internet and the mainstream platforms, and specifically.
I do think it's harmful to push a lot of gender-heavy things like LGBTQ or whatever. I think it's like how you. I don't even want to say push. You just gotta normalize it, right? There's a movie that I saw recently. I think this movie is fantastic. This movie is called Nimona. This movie is one of the best Netflix movies I've seen in a while, and rated 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb. And it features a girl who's can transform into different creatures. And then this guy, guess what? This guy's gay. Do they make a big deal out of this guy being gay? No, they don't. And that's fine. It's okay. There's one thing where it's like you're trying to push like this kind of level of normality and acceptance. And I do think there's something to be said there, but I do think the best way to normalize certain kind of differences or different identities or different notions is just incorporate them in a way that's kid friendly, that is just them in a normal environment. And I think that's completely fine. So I wouldn't call that pushing LGBTQ. I would say, oh, two guys, movie, it's fine. It's okay. And that's what I would say. There are good ways to do it. There are bad ways to do it, just like religion and just like certain other ideologies. Good ways, bad ways. But LGBTQ, like by itself, like the notion, it's not harmful. It's just like how you kind of contextualize it for people is the question, especially kids who are very impressionable.
Protective spaces. Like, I mean, this is a lot of this began as well, speaking of sort of like things that affect porn and sex workers, with FOSTA SESTA, which is the first major carve out to Section 230, which passed in 2018. It was a law that said that effectively, platforms lose their Section 230 protections if they're hosting, I'm sort of simplifying it, but like content that could incentivize like sex trafficking, or sort of, would lead people to be able to facilitate like sex trafficking. This is what led to like Tumblr getting shut down, right? Like Tumblr's not shut down, but like Tumblr had to remove porn because of it. Section 230 protections. And by the way, I just want people to remember, I don't know if you remember this, Amy Schumer, I think it was Seth Meyers, they did this whole celebrity campaign, went out, they did this PSA, we have to amend Section 230, we have to crack down on big tech. And all these liberals, because it was right after Trump had won, we're like peak resistance, the Me Too movement, whatever. And liberals were like, we do have to crack down on big tech. Like, Facebook gave Donald Trump the election. Like, let's crack down on big tech. Okay, guys. So you guys got what you wanted. You got, I'm just saying, to like the Heritage Foundation, right? Like you got this major carve out to Section 230 by claiming that it would crack down on big tech. Do you think that Meta and Google are more powerful or less powerful than when that passed in 2018? Because the argument was that we're going to pass FOSTA SESTA, we're going to do this big carve out to Section 230, and that's going to curb the power of big tech. Big tech has only gotten more powerful, and now Mark Zuckerberg himself endorses Section 230 reform because he knows it's just going to be
and spread election lies. By the way, I just want to be clear about that. So Facebook came out with this ridiculous statement regarding the news story about the Hunter Biden laptop, where they mischaracterized themselves and their influence on the election. And I found it to be disgraceful. I find that all of these people standing by and
So what was the? Oh man, I wish they said it. Like, what was the proposal before that led into? Because I agree, social media has become more powerful after the Trump administration, like undoubtedly. But what was the thing that caused them to become more powerful? Because you're insinuating a correlation, or dare I say, go as so far to say you're insinuating a causation. I don't know what you're referring to. Personally, I have no idea.
patting the Trump administration on the back is disgraceful, and they're traitors to our nation. In my opinion, I have very little patience for them. And so yeah, we don't want these people to have more power. Certainly not the administration to enforce. I'm going to push you back a little bit, though, Taylor. And just so people understand that I have my position. I'm totally against these laws, but here's the other side. It's actually really, really bad to have anonymity on the internet. I mean, it's horrible that we just like you notice in your chorus critique, which is that all of this money, we don't know where it's coming from. We don't know what the influences are. There's no transparency. Same thing.
But that's not because of anonymity on the internet.
Well, no,
the money stuff is not because of anonymity on the internet.
No, sure. But I'm talking about the ideological policy reason to be in favor of disclosure when it comes to money funds. Why isn't that true for people talking on the public forum?
Yes. Let's talk about it, because I hear this a lot. Like, and the way the Democrats were selling it. So when I went and I wrote about this in my piece.
Okay. It seems like she's about to give a little bit more substance on her stances, which I'm here for. I'm listening.
That came out today in The Intercept. I was so disheartened by it because under Joe Biden's term, you had Neera Tanden up on stage at this big content creator summit they had last year, or
Director
2024.
of Domestic Policy.
Yeah,
something like that.
Something like, I can't remember exactly.
Senior advisor to one of the major
advisor.
councils.
Yeah. So she and Biden himself was up at the summit where they invited hundreds of content creators to the White House. I don't know if you're there. They invited a lot of Democrats, 2024. And they got up and they were selling all of this stuff to them, including the Kids Online Safety Act, which Neera Tanden was missing, saying, don't you hate trolls? Don't you hate trolls on the internet? People are so mean. We'll unmask the trolls. And that's why we need to remove anonymity from the internet. What I would say is look at the endless amount of research. And trust me, there is a lot of research that actually proves that removing anonymity from the internet does not make it a safer or nicer or kinder space. And I would invite.
One, I need the research, and two, it provides more accountability. I don't know how yeah, I need to see that research. Okay.
Anybody that thinks that to just take a look at the Facebook comment sections of any, political posts and see what people will happily say under their government name. It's ridiculous. And a lot of things, what people need to realize too, is that this doesn't mean that every person.
And you can directly hold them accountable for the words that they say, right? I mean, it's not really about making it safer. It's just being held more accountable, being upfront with your identity and what you're saying. I think it's pretty obvious that there are certain people that will say disgusting and terrible things under a false persona because of a certain level of protection. Like that what you just said is not an argument against it. It's more so as like, oh, it's still bad, so we don't need it. But if I can prove a claim, more of a normative claim based off intuition and generalized understanding based off human psychology, that secrecy allows for potentially more nefarious behavior, then removing it will provide a little bit more transparency and accountability, especially when I don't know if she's like for it, especially for like the group of people who love canceling other people. Don't you want them to be able to do that better? I don't know if she's part of that crowd. Maybe I just said that for no reason. I'm gonna say I said that for no reason, but like, I don't know. I don't think this is a good argument against it.
Person will be unmasked to you. You'll still probably get someone with a weird avatar and a faceless name or whatever, right? Like hating on you. But now the government is going to have their information and the platforms and the big.
And what is this argument? So the people who do put their name and face, they shouldn't because of the government? I don't get the argument really here. You're defending the people who use anonymity because the government's going to get their information? Really? Is that your argument? What about the people who don't do that? Are you just saying, oh, you're just a useless shill to the government as they can access your information? What about all the people who post pictures of themselves and their family? Like, really? So the only people protected from the government are people who completely hide their identity? Really? I don't know, man. This is just not
have
a
a lot of
good
information. So it doesn't make the experience better for you. It just means that it's going to be easier for the government to target them if that person goes out and speaks against
Okay, but let me make the
power.
argument harder for you. All right. Suppose that is there a public interest?
That's a terrible argument. Free speech laws still exist. The government. So are you saying people should be anonymous so they can potentially break free speech exceptions and they can be protected from, like, isn't that a bad argument? Because people who are breaking free speech protections or exceptions, wouldn't we want them to be held accountable? Because what is anti-free speech? Obscene material. Wouldn't we want them to be held accountable? What is free speech? Inciting of violence. Wouldn't we want them to be held accountable? Like, that's just not an argument, Taylor. What are you arguing? Free speech still protects them from the government. The government can't just take these people's information too. Now, can they see the information? Sure. But even if I, with my face and my name is up there, they can't do anything to me because free speech exists. So that's just a dog shit argument. Like, what are we doing?
Actually, if these online spaces are going to be analogized to traditional public fora in real life, and I think that for a lot of reasons,
well, we allow for anonymity, right? We allow people to use pen names.
True,
and
we
stuff in the
we
outside
do.
world. That's always been very crucial.
To wear masks and
too.
stuff out there. Although obviously we have
No, not to wear masks. Oh, you mean like physical
in
anonymity.
physical spaces, right? I mean,
well, you can wear a physical disguise if you want. I mean,
this is not a normal thing that people do. They don't. The general public, when they go out, they're not wearing a disguise to protect themselves from the government. What is this? Are we speaking in reality or are we speaking from exceptions? Are you creating positions from exceptions? Like for the random person who wants to completely disguise himself from the rest of reality? Is that how humanity has been our entire lives, where we have to protect ourselves at all times from the government? Like, what tinfoil hat are we wearing right now? Like, Trump is fascist. He's probably anti-free speech, but I'm talking about the totality of like what America is, and this is just not a good argument.
Acknowledging that 100%.
I guess ICE is doing that.
Yeah, but we have a difference of opinion when it's like the government doing it, perhaps. But the
I'm
question
talking about written. I think we should keep it to written speech because, like, the thing is like the written. American democracy was founded on anonymous written speech. Like, anonymous, you have the right to publish anonymously.
See, I think she's really focusing on protecting whistleblowers, and I do think there's something to protecting whistleblowers, right? Whistleblowers are a unique type of individual that is able to expose and protect themselves at the same time. And I think those people probably should be protected. There probably should be an exception there is an exception for whistleblowers. I'm pretty sure there's already like provisions for whistleblower protections. Like, that already exists. So using whistleblowers as an extension for all people is not really an argument. Like, whistleblowers can still exist in a society without anonymity. I don't know.
And people have, it's a very core right. And the reason that we have that is because you're right, for probably 90% of people, maybe it won't matter so much, they think. But you have to consider that the people that are challenging power or challenging corporations, whistleblowers, journalists, activists. I mean,
yeah, protect whistleblowers. We could protect these people, can still be protected. Now, I guess it's a question on how you protect them, though. If there's no anonymity, the person who is being anonymous is clearly a whistleblower. But like, you would know they're a whistleblower regardless. But how do they ensure that level of whistleblower? Well, there's probably, I would have to really think about it, but I do think there's probably something you can do. Currently, if you want to be a whistleblower, you could just do it. You could just post whatever. And then, but I'm sure, oh man, I should look this up. I'm sure there's a protection. Like, once you're qualified as a whistleblower, you get a level of protection. So how do you qualify as a whistleblower? Let me look this up. How do you qualify as a whistleblower? How do you become a whistleblower? All right, here we go. Your rights as a whistleblower guide to U.S. protections. Whistleblowing is legally defined as reporting misconduct through authorized channels and is protected by, like, we can have authorized channels for whistleblowing and be fine. When employees speak up about wrongdoing, they perform a crucial public service that saves lives, protect taxpayers, and uphold the rule of law. From exposing corporate fraud to reveal, like, okay, we have a legal means, authorized channels. We can still keep all that, and we can expand that protection to include journalists as well. I think that's all fine. I think that's okay if we just expand the whistleblower moniker, but then just ensure, and then everything else is just not anonymous anymore. Why is that not an option?
I think a lot of liberals will remember actually during Trump 1.0 when you had like rogue NOAA or like rogue NASA, those accounts that were like leaking information about sort of climate change science that was being suppressed by the government under these anonymous Twitter accounts. Like anonymity is used to challenge power constantly. And already, if somebody's doing something illegal,
not
they can
really an argument. Is this all she got? All right, the specific threat to children. All right, let's get to this.
People are starting to aware that I don't know if it's true if I'm getting
AI
like,
wins.
yeah, they like give information potentially about what people are doing, and it's a little bit Orwellian and like I don't know,
It's
very,
so Orwellian, and that's what we're getting.
yes. So now talk to me before, and we get to questions and stuff, and really I do appreciate you coming on and having the conversation. Talk to me about the empirics behind the specific threat to children in your review of things, of data, of information. Do you think that there's a there? I mean, in my intuitive sense, I think that social media can be corrosive, but I don't really have a strong empirical basis to.
You don't have a strong empirical basis to deter. Do you need empirical data to quantify harm to children? How the fuck would you even record that level of harm empirically? How? You can't tell by the radical nature of right wingers that are growing, that are becoming groypers. You can't tell about the level of like loneliness and depression that is manifesting more and more in the youth. You can't tell by the individuals that are like grifting towards like disgusting red pill rhetoric from like Andrew Tate and freaking Sneeko back in the day. Do you need specific empirical data? How the fuck are you going to measure that? You think kids are going to fill out the amount of toxicity that they grown into? It's just like sometimes like empirics are important. They're valuable, no doubt about it. But sometimes you can kind of understand ramifications based off not necessarily pure intuition, but by contextual information surrounding you, especially being on the online space. Taylor's absolute scum. She does suck. I'm gonna be honest. She had some dog shit arguments. I don't want to be mean, but like she did. It's just not a good argument that she gave earlier.
To know that there's a particular threat to children or where that threat is. So talk about the empirics as you understand them.
Yeah, it's so fraught. And I think a lot of people have this deep sort of
The dangers to children is fraud. Like, okay, all right, here we go.
Emotional feelings about it. And so they're just sort of emotionally invested in this idea because they have their own sort of maybe negative relationship with their phone or social media.
Are we dead ass? You think this is being internalized and then manifested into unrealistic perceptions on what is going on in current reality? Are we serious? You think people are just making this shit up about what's going on with children nowadays? Oh my God, bro. All right, bro. Whatever.
Like they just inherently believe it's harmful. Here's the thing with all
this is pissing me off. Because you can make this argument about basically anything. Unless they outright die, basically anything. And sometimes you don't even know the causal relationship to a kid's death. Right? I guess you can attribute smoking cigarettes, right? Like, okay, yeah. Drinking alcohol, yeah. It's very clear. One-to-one causation relationship, but all right. I'm starting to think she's rage baiting, but it's like, what are we doing right now? Why are we pretending that this is like dark money is the worst thing in the world, but there's not clear harm that's happening from the current social media and media landscape to children? Like we can't see that? Are we serious?
All forms of media, right? We see this moral panic framing, towards every new form of media and technology.
Right.
Every single argument is.
So what's the point of having rated R films? Honestly, children should be allowed to watch porn, right? Might as well, because we don't see the empiric harm, right? They should be able to watch porn. They should be able to watch like war documentaries, war footage. Because like, why not? Why not? Such a
Made. It's
terrible
addicting.
argument.
It's corrupting the youth. It's bad. That doesn't
It is.
absolve Meta, and Google and stuff of accountability for all the nefarious stuff that they do. They're not good actors. They're corporations that want to exploit every ounce of attention and money that they can out of everyone. But we just need to be careful in terms of how we talk about it. Like, according to every single piece of research not from people like Jonathan Haidt, who are like Weird Heritage Foundation collaborators, but people like Candace Adgers and Alice Warwick and people that really study this stuff for a living, they say that effectively, social media is sort of like it is a mirror to sort of your, it like a lot of forms of media, it's a mirror to kind of how you're feeling. So if you are feeling depressed and you listen to a bunch of sad songs, that's going to make you maybe more depressed. If you have an
No shit. That's why the algorithm is super problematic. You know what? You know who can't contextualize the amount of information overload that's skewing them to extremes? Fucking children. You can't understand that? Like, come on. You can't understand that? Like, you hear a conclusion. Can you understand how if you relay that conclusion to children in particular based off the... Oh, okay. All right.
Eating disorder, and you go out and you buy 1 million copies of Vogue magazine, and you're, pouring over these really images of emaciated women, that could exacerbate your eating disorder. So media consumption and communication can be harmful to your mental health if you're.
No, it is harmful. Well, I'm gonna say it can be. I'm being a little too aggressive. She's right. Can be is a better term than it is, because it's not always. She's correct. Okay. Move on.
You're using them as coping mechanisms. If you have maladaptive social behaviors where like you really can't handle maybe seeing people like your friends.
You don't need maladaptive social behaviors to be basically toxified based off from the social media. That's it can exasperate people with maladaptive social behaviors, for sure. But you don't need it to fall in this kind of trap of nefarious fucking parts of the internet.
Friends having fun without you, you feel self-conscious, but it is not necessarily the cause of that. And these are ultimately
Bro, what? Bro, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? So the system that exists, that is created to ensure that you fall yourself in specific bubbles of hyperfixation of any particular thing, is not causing you to be obsessed, to incorrectly frame, to be ideologically captured to that thing. A system that is clearly created. Now, its initial reason why algorithms were created is to give consumers what they want. But now we have a society where you can have what you want 24 hours. And you can just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. It's like, yes, it's the cause. Okay. Everything else is problematic besides the very clear thing that is affecting humanity right in front of you in your hand that you can have access 24 hours. But okay, everything else is a problem though. All right, bro.
Tools. So we need to be careful when we regulate this stuff that we're not regulating, like that we're regulating the companies and not the users. And all of
So what's the point of drink and drive laws? Isn't that regulating the user because they're using the product incorrectly? Isn't that the point? That there are things out there that people will abuse and it's bad for them. Like, we have laws to prevent a level of self-harm. Because unfortunately, certain people don't know how to protect themselves. It's unfortunate. That's why we also need a better educational system. But it's true. Now, I don't want to go too far because at that point we're like restricting free will, free speech, all that stuff, 100%. But we already have laws that exist that restrict these things because of harm. So why can't you understand that like there's parts of the internet and social media that can also do this? Now, my quota is 18, you're an adult, you make your own decisions. Okay, whatever. And I do think there is a certain level of conversation of a level of restriction there. But you are able to contextualize society a little bit better than a child is. So maybe you'll be able to kind of go through it without completely diving into the craziest parts of the internet. Maybe, but kids have no ability to do this. None. They don't have the brain capacity. They don't have the context. They don't have the perspective. None. So of course you understand the harm. This is a dog shit argument. I hate this. I'm stop watching this video. This shit sucks. I don't know what the fuck we're talking about here. I'm not gonna lie.